Hello friends, and welcome back to Scaling Stories. Today, I've got some more highly upvoted posts from Best of Redditor updates for y'all. Like always, I'll be reading you the posts and giving you my opinions, and I also hope you do the same in the comments down below. Also, I'm currently only in Spotify's creator program, so watching on there would help me out a ton. Thank you so much for your support. Today's first story comes from the Relationships subreddit. It was posted by Cake and Stuff on November 10th, 2014, and was titled, Me, 20 female, with my boyfriend, 20 male, have been dating long distance and now he wants a break. My boyfriend and I met our freshman year of college and have been dating for 2 years now. We've always been insanely close, BFF type couple, and never seemed to have a single problem. He's a computer scientist and has been spending his summers interning in California. I'm in New York, so the complete opposite coast, which wasn't a big deal the first summer, but this past summer, I ended up having some issues with his communication. He never seemed to have time to talk on the phone or Skype and is a notoriously bad texter, and it became an issue with me, one that seemed like it would only be resolved once we returned to campus. Well, because he did so well at his internship, he was offered a year-long position out there, which he accepted right away. He admitted to me that he didn't take our relationship into consideration because he didn't want it to affect his decision, which I understand. We've seen each other twice since then, the first at the beginning of August and the last time when I flew out there about a month ago. The deal was that he had to call or Skype me once a week, which, for the most part, he stuck to. Everything seemed to be going surprisingly well, considering. Well, 2 weeks ago, the communication suddenly started tapering off, and I was getting big flashbacks to the summertime and started getting kind of scared and annoyed. This kind of peaked when, after days of trying to get him to call or Skype me, he told me that he couldn't because he sat down to start watching V for Vendetta, at which point I totally blew up at him. We started talking about communication, and he stated that he doesn't like talking on the phone or Skyping because he always gets distracted and starts doing other things while we're talking. He also apparently gets too distracted to properly respond to texts and thinks Facebook messages would be a better way to talk. However, that kind of fell off the discussion table when he revealed that, apparently, he's having this big, huge problem with being apart from me. He's the kind of guy who has always had a girlfriend and hasn't spent much time being single. Also, when he was here, we would spend practically every night together, and when he wasn't with me, he always had a roommate, even over the summers. Currently, he lives with 6 other people, but he has his own room, and apparently, sleeping alone every night is giving him anxiety. In his own words, he had apparently been weighing his need to have someone to sleep next to against his desire to be with me, but later stated that he doesn't actually want anyone else. In his words, I don't want some crappy half Jane pretending to be my Jane. Just the fact that I can't be there is giving him pain. I suggested that maybe I record the sound of myself sleeping for him to listen to, but he rejected it, saying it was a dirty trick. So, it came to this. Over this past weekend, I told him to think about whether he still wanted to be with me or if he would rather break up because I wasn't going to make that call. He thought about it overnight and, at first, returned with the verdict that he wanted to be with me. When I asked him why this over that, he said he didn't have a reason and just went with his gut feeling, which left me feeling not really reassured, which I told him. Then, he announced he wanted to take a break for a week. He said it was so that he could realize all the things he takes for granted and better appreciate me. I asked him point blank if he'd met someone, which he denied and said that wasn't what this was about. I also told him that, if he should, the decent thing to do would be to break it off with me, which he agreed. So, we started our break yesterday. I'm not dumb. I know that right after we hung up, he and his housemates were throwing a huge party, so I don't think it's a coincidence that he'd bring this up right before then. I tried talking to my sisters and friends, but they were all overwhelmingly negative about both my boyfriend, this is new, as they've all really liked him until now, and the situation, and how this is all basically a ruse so he can keep me around while searching for a new girlfriend guilt-free, and that's kind of what I believe as well. However, I also believe this might be because I was stifling him before with my need for him to keep in touch. However, if it is, why didn't he just tell me that? Also, if he was using this as an excuse to meet girls, why did he insist on just a week? I know long-term couples like us need breaks from each other, but we're long distance. There is a huge amount of physical space between us already, and we only talk once a week. I know he and I are young, and maybe I should just forget about him, but I feel like if I can salvage the relationship, I should at least try. Scaling Stories Corner. Well, for starters, OP's sisters and friends might have had a positive outlook on her boyfriend before, but after she told them about how he's been uncommunicative and now all of a sudden wants to declare a break to explore himself, they realize that he's a piece of crap and not an ideal boyfriend for OP, so they don't want her to accept a man like that in her life. OP and her boyfriend clearly have history, so it's harder for her to just break things off compared to being in a reader's perspective. But someone who's this disrespectful towards you and doesn't value you, I don't think it's worth fighting to keep the relationship alive. He's most definitely trying to hook up with someone at that huge party his housemates are throwing, and he's trying to keep OP as a backup option so he still has someone to talk to when he's bored. And that's just, ew. She can do better for herself. Now here are some of the top/relevant comments from the original post. Commenter 1 says, "A break is a breakup. The only thing he wants to discover about himself while separated from you is how far he can string you along without feeling that he's cheating. Let's be honest here. What kind of crap revelation is he going to achieve in a week of separation and guilt-free emotional cheating? Probably how much he enjoys having 2 girlfriends. One for emotional support and one for sex/cuddling. Or, if he's rationalizing it, physical fulfillment. If nothing else, just remember that a break really is a breakup, and if he wants to start a relationship with you again, approach him as someone who did not want to be with you. Objectively identify what this relationship will bring to you, not the shared history that you used to have." Commenter 2 says, "If you're only talking once a week and he felt stifled, he's, not that into you." Update 2 days later. So he just messaged me an hour ago on Facebook, telling me he misses me like crazy and that he had already bought plane tickets to come surprise me this weekend, but wanted to tell me beforehand in case I'd made any plans. I have absolutely no idea how to feel about this. Of course, I'm happy to see him and that he missed me, but it feels surreal. Over the past few days, I'd been seriously considering splitting from him because I wasn't sure I could take it just being on break, not knowing if he was pursuing other women or if he'd already met someone. He did. I figured it would take him months to come back to me, if he did at all, but only 2 days? Is this a good sign, or should we still take a break from each other? Because I'm sure the problems he had before aren't just magically gone. Too many feelings over the past few days for me. Scaling Stories Corner. So, yeah, this reads like he just hooked up with some girl at that party, and now he feels immense guilt and is trying to make up for it. It makes me think of some meme pictures I've seen sometimes where someone's partner is messaging them at 2 a.m. and the context is supposed to be they were out late at night or at the bar or something, and they start texting things like, "Baby, I miss you so much. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me," and so on. Things like that. This feels like that version of the meme except at a higher level since he already bought plane tickets to travel across the country. Second update 4 days later. So he flew in yesterday morning, and we were sitting around for about an hour, and I could tell right off that he was being very hesitant with me. So I asked him if there was a girl involved, and he said yes. I told him to give me the entire story, and this is what happened, according to him. After I first started arguing with him last Thursday, he proceeded to get drunk and started flirting with his female roommate. He lives with 6 other people, and she's the only not gay female in the house. He claims that when he asked for a break on Sunday, it was 100% not about her, but I told him that it was probably in the back of his mind when he did, and he agreed. So on Monday, she and he got drunk and had sex. The next morning, he started feeling terrible, and by Tuesday afternoon, he bought a ticket to come see me. Before he left, he apparently talked with his roommate and told her it would never be happening again, and apparently, she didn't care. She knows he was seeing me and that we were on break, and he thinks that she just wanted to get laid. I was so freaking upset after this, and I told him he needed to leave and stay with a friend. He had started crying while he was telling me about her, and when I told him that we probably had to break up, he started sobbing and apologizing. I told him to stay in the living room and called my mom, and she calmed me down a little. We spent all of yesterday talking, basically, and in the end, I just felt like we should have the weekend together because that's probably all we have left. My current plan is to break it off when it's time for him to go because I don't think I can get over this. If it had been a random girl, maybe, but she's his freaking roommate, and he'll be living with her until August. I can't do that. There were too many broken promises. He promised that I didn't have to worry about him living with girls because they were all too unattractive for him, and that the break wasn't about screwing around. He really doesn't seem to want to break up. He says it's the worst mistake he ever made, and it didn't mean anything. He was just so lonely and depressed. I was asking him if he'd ever thought we'd have a future together, and he admitted that he'd started saving for a wedding ring because he considered me the girl he wanted to marry when we got older. It was nice to hear that, but it made this affair even more mind-boggling. It feels like, right now, he'd say anything to keep me. In the end, maybe we'll get back together when he returns to New York in a year. Maybe not, but once he returns to California, I can't trust him to be faithful anymore. And I think this is good. We're so young, and I was his first partner. He needs more experience, and I probably do too. We're too young to be caught up in this weird situation. Scaling Stories Corner. Nah. Hell to the nah. I would never take back someone like OP's boyfriend. He definitely knew what he wanted when he asked OP for the so-called break. And then when the post-nut clarity hit, he regretted it so hard, he needed to confess and spill his guts to OP face-to-face. I bet this would fold at one point or another when he flies back because the same urges and thoughts that he had that led him to hooking up with his roommate are still there. And like OP says, they're too young to be getting caught up in this weird situation. He's already broken your trust. Don't let his BS promises of saving up for a wedding ring for the girl he's always wanted to marry fool you. Because if that was true, he would never have called for a break in the first place and immediately slept with someone right after. Now here are some of the top/relevant comments from the update post. Commenter 1 says, he asked for the break so he could sleep with his roommate. Time to get rid of him. Commenter 2 says, don't bother. He wasn't thinking about your feelings when he effed someone else. Letting him stay with you just gives him more time to guilt you into keeping him around. Commenter 3 says, I can't believe how people still want to stay in a relationship after cheating. He is unstable and he will continue to hurt you. It's better to leave him. Honestly, I wouldn't be able to forgive him if he did that to me. If he returns to New York in a year, you can try again. Until then, you shouldn't feel obliged to have a relationship with him. It's not good for you. Have some pride. Third update 3 days later. So, last I wrote, my now ex flew in from California and announced he slept with his female roommate, and we'd still been working through it when he left early yesterday morning. I was still incredibly confused and hurt, but I did know that I needed some space to think things through and make sure I wasn't being too heavily influenced by his presence. I suspect I was because, after working on me for 3 days, I was feeling like maybe he deserved a second chance if he could prove himself worthy of it somehow, which I told him. Well, things weren't sitting quite right. I guess I didn't believe that things really were all as he said. Some things just didn't seem to make sense with his story, but what proof did I have? So, I went to an alternate source. I messaged his roommate, the one he slept with. I didn't and still don't blame her. I've always believed that the cheating falls on the shoulders of the cheater, which is my ex. I sent her a lengthy and sincere Facebook message explaining my side of events. I explained how he had made a promise that there was no girl involved and that taking a break wasn't at all about seeing other people, and that if it had been, I never would have agreed to a break with him. And also that, because of his dishonesty over the situation, I consider it to be cheating. I also asked what her intentions were toward him and what their relationship was really like. She was really nice and frank. She regretted her involvement and tried to explain her actions, but they didn't really matter because even though she had pursued him, it was his choice to go after her. According to her, this is how it all went down. For a few weeks, she and John had been drinking buddies, and there was a tension that had started building between them, sitting too close, maybe brushing past. Honestly, that explains 100% why the communication had suddenly started drying up. The day we started fighting, he got very forward with her, putting his arm around her and escalating almost into mock wrestling tickling before she stopped him, telling him he knew he was still with me and she didn't want to be a rebound. But she told me that afterward, she definitely made her intentions clear to him. On Sunday, he texted her right after he initiated the break with me, and that night, they hooked up, though she stopped him before they had sex, wanting him to be really sure of what he was doing. Obviously, he was because they had sex both Monday and Tuesday nights. I didn't ask her about all the other things he told me, that the sex was terrible and he hadn't come and he didn't spend the night with her and left immediately afterward. It was enough to hear that not only had he slept with her twice, but the whole affair had been 100% premeditated. I had specifically told him, when he asked for a break, that if another woman was involved, the decent thing to do would be to break it off. Guess that shows something about his character. She also had to say that she didn't want to date him, as this is truly evidence of his immaturity, but that, if she was honest, she was still interested in being friends with benefits with him, depending on whether or not I'd be in the picture in the future. I guess this really just cemented the fact that he and I absolutely could never be together. I told her she could have him. When I heard this, I thanked her and sent him an email with a picture of all his stuff in a garbage bag and said that I'm giving it to his friend to bring back to him, that he and I are done, that I know everything, and F you, have a nice life, and don't ever contact me. Well, of course, he kept calling me and I eventually picked up, and he was really crying and begging me not to leave him and saying how sorry he was. He said he didn't tell me the whole truth because he thought I wouldn't be able to forgive him. He was right, and how he didn't want the other girl. He only wanted me. Well, I told him he was stupid for thinking I wouldn't find out, and for not breaking up with me before spending all that money to fly here and remember just how great of a girlfriend I actually am, and that if he really cared about me, then he'd know that I deserved better than the treatment he's been giving me. He left another voicemail after that, which has been my favorite material yet. He doesn't want to be alone, and wasn't it enough that he told me 90% of what happened? Seriously. So, yeah. Everyone on this website was so right about him right from the beginning. I stand by my naive actions, as I really did need that last bit of proof before I was able to let go, but it still effing hurts. I'm glad I know everything so that I'm never tempted back by him, because he really is very manipulative. The only thing now is to find a way to stop thinking about it because I just want him and the situation out of my head. I feel like I can't eat, as food just tastes like nothing, and I have to force myself to swallow. Any breakup advice would be really great, as I am totally devastated. This whole post story has been crazy long, and I thank you if you read it. I really needed to get the whole thing out. Scaling Stories Corner. So, that sucks for OP. I know everyone and their grandma was calling that this guy was cheating on her, and I saw the writing on the wall too, especially when she made the update that he made a sporadic plane ticket purchase back to visit her, but it still must really hurt for her because she spent so much time with him. I think just be thankful that it happened now and that she was able to get the closure she wanted to be able to truly never want to take him back. And also about the closure she got from the ex-boyfriend's roommate, that was kind of crazy behavior from the roommate. Yes, the boyfriend is trash for engaging in cheating behavior, but if you know someone else is in a committed relationship and you're trying to make moves on that person, then you're also kind of trash. OP kind of forgave her, or more like just didn't really write bad about her, but I think the female roommate's character was really bad here. She did a good thing by explaining the whole situation to OP, but that doesn't right her wrongs, and she was still down to be friends with benefits with a cheater. Now here are some of the top/relevant comments from the update post. Commenter 1 says, "He doesn't want to be alone, and wasn't it enough that he told me 90% of what happened? I lost it at that line. Round of applause for you, OP. You did everything in the best way possible. Gold star." Breakup advice. You need to go back and read this post because it's loaded with self-respect and strength when you feel weak. Don't not eat. Go get your favorite thing or something you never really had time to eat when you were dating, and start looking at the positives. You need to be selfish because not eating/moving/going outside or being social is the fast track to spiraling. Any guy who does that to you is not worth you spiraling into a depression. The best revenge is living well. Commenter 2 says, "The way I see it, he only told you 10%. He left out the big parts of manipulation and betrayal. It was all intentional. Roommate is disgusting though. She knows what he is. But hey, let's reward him for being immature and intentional with more sex. Seriously, get effing higher standards, ladies. You can trip over men everywhere. It's not that difficult." But anyway, I had read your original thread, and I felt so terrible about this whole situation you're going through. But it was good you found out unequivocally the whole truth. Thoughts will be hard to banish, but remember his actions. Those are the things you never want to endure with him ever again. And simply, he only wants you because he doesn't want to be alone? Seriously? He has his roommate he can F now. They both deserve each other. Keep your head up. You're beautiful and worthy of better things. Okay, friends. So that concludes our first story of the day. Next up, we have a story from the Relationships subreddit. It was posted by Holly2321 on January 31st, 2016, and was titled, "My 25 female, husband's 27 male, old friend 25 male told me my husband is gay." I went to one of my husband's friend's wedding receptions yesterday. We were sitting at our table when a man whom I didn't recognize, and I know pretty much all of my husband's friends, came over to our table, greeting my husband. They met like they hadn't seen each other in a long time. My husband even said to him, "Wow, you look good," and he was smiling a lot. His friend even said, "I love your beard. I wish you had grown it out a bit earlier when I told you to," and then turned slightly in my direction, and I smiled, and then my husband introduced us quite hesitantly, saying, "This is my wife." I didn't think much of it, except for the odd way my husband looked at him. Although, maybe every fitness trainer looks at other fit men like that? Question mark, question mark, question mark? I don't know. The friend gave me a weird look, and it got pretty awkward. It took a few seconds for him to smile and introduce himself, saying my husband got him started at the gym about a year ago or something. Then, they both left to meet some other friends. When we were leaving the reception, the friend came up to me while my husband was saying goodbye to the groom. He said, "I don't know whether I should be telling you this or not, but your husband is gay. Take my word for it. I am too." And then he said sorry and left, speed walking away. I was left in utter shock, and I couldn't and still can't tell if he was being serious or not. I kept silent until this morning. I had my suspicions that something was up a year after we got married, and he was getting close to his male clients. I used to see him getting really close to some of them while I was at the gym too. When he got pissed that I didn't want to go to last year's Pride Parade. The fact that he doesn't want kids and keeps saying, "not now." The fact that he jerks off way more than we have sex and will do it right after he says he's not in the mood. But then I brushed it off, thinking that it was normal for him. So, this morning, I told him what his friend said to me, and he became really angry. He started swearing at him, the friend, repeatedly before leaving the house, and he's not back yet. He's not returning my texts or phone calls. I drove over to the gym, and he's not there either. He's been gone since 11 a.m. What do I do? Scaling Stories Corner. So, my first thought was that maybe the husband is bi, and he didn't tell her because he was afraid of her reacting to him negatively, either with biphobia or homophobia. And of course, I think he should tell her if he was actually bi. And I'm just saying that as a potential reason why he didn't tell her. But if OP's husband is not bi, and he maybe is gay, then he's maybe using OP as a cover to pretend that he's straight. It could very well be leaning towards that since the guy at the wedding pulled OP to the side to tell him that her husband was gay, sort of like a heads-up warning for her because he thinks it's wrong that her husband is lying to her. If I'm OP, I think I would give this one final one-on-one conversation with her husband to explain what his friend said and if there's any truth to it. But to be honest, the friend was well received at the wedding, and OP's husband even greeted him so friendly. So I have no idea why he would lie and be malicious here. So I'm thinking that maybe this marriage is kinda cooked. Now here are some of the top/relevant comments from the original post. Commenter 1 says, "Frowny face. Well, this sucks. He may not be gay. He may have an attraction to men and be bi. To me, whether cheating has occurred would be a bigger issue than if he were bi and hiding it. On the other hand, if he's gay, then you can't stay in this marriage. I'm sorry, but life is too short to live in a loveless marriage. You deserve a relationship with a partner who wants you. You're still young and have an entire life in front of you to find that person." Commenter 2 says, "Yikes. I think you've got your answer. Your husband got angry about this, being outed. I would go and talk to a divorce lawyer ASAP, see what this means for you. I mean, it sounds like your husband isn't even denying this. I'm betting this guy is one of the guys whom your husband dated/screwed behind your back, as gross as that is. Hence the surprise and the quick confession. That guy is a pretty nice guy. He must not have known you existed. I'm so sorry your husband did this to you. It's super disrespectful." OP adds an edit to her post. "He still isn't back. It's been 24 hours now. I don't know where he is. I've called his friends, his coworkers, and everyone I possibly can who'd know where he is. I'm very worried." Update 3 days later. I wrote the update a few days ago, but the auto moderator kept removing it because I accidentally deleted the first update, so it thought I was reposting. Since a lot of you were wondering what happened, after he had not been home from 11 a.m. until the next day at 7 p.m., I went to my mom's place around 5ish because I was so shaken. I was going to have a panic attack. I called everyone who I thought would know where he was, but no one did. I was thinking about filing a missing persons report, like some of you said, but by that time, it was 7, and he called me, saying he was home, and literally hung up the phone. I got there as fast as I could. I got in the house, and most of his crap was packed, so I assumed he came in before. I started crying, and he just sat on the couch while I yelled at him. He said absolutely nothing. Just when I started feeling bad, the friend we saw at the wedding came out of my bedroom holding boxes. I lost it and yelled at him. I called him every effing name in the book. My husband tried telling me to stop, but I told him I wouldn't unless he told me what was going on. I told him to tell his friend to get out of my house so we could discuss it. So, he left. I asked him if he was gay, and he said he was but didn't know how to deal with it. Apparently, he married me because I was in love with him, and he felt bad. When I asked if he cheated on me, he said yes, with the same friend. They met at a bar and slept together. The friend didn't know he was married and wanted a relationship. My husband said he fell in love with him and wanted to be with him, but couldn't, so they drifted apart a year later. The wedding was the time they met after all that time, and that's when he realized my husband was married. He told me he initially left to give his friend, Matthew, a piece of his mind for telling me, but I'm assuming he went there, effed him, and then they took a shower and slept together because he was dressed in someone else's clothes and clearly looked well rested and fine. He looked better than before, actually. I looked like an absolute mess, with bags under my eyes, and my face was effing breaking out. I have never been so infuriated and sad in my entire life. I have absolutely no energy left in me. I told him to take his stuff, and we're getting divorced. And all he said was, "I'm sorry it has to be this way, but at least be nicer to Matthew for forcing me to come out so we can each be happier." So, he clearly cares more about him than he ever did about me, and I'm apparently a pity case. He left with his new boyfriend, and I'm certain they're moving in together now. I have been sitting on my bed, crying my eyes out and having a massive headache since then. I really don't know how to live without him. I love him, and despite all of that, he's done so many amazing things, and I honestly can't let go. I don't live at our place anymore, even though he said I could have the house. I've been staying at my mom's place because everything reminds me of him. Before he left, he told me he did love me, just in a different way. I don't know what to do anymore. Thanks for all the kind words and advice. It was comforting to read. Scaling Stories Corner. Yikes. OP's husband was a complete piece of crap for leading OP on for all that time while knowing he was gay. It's not even that he was bi. I feel like if he was bi, then he would have said that to OP, but he said he was gay and didn't know how to deal with it, and he married OP because she was in love with him, and it definitely seems like it was a one-sided love, so that really sucks for OP. I don't blame the friend for sleeping with OP's husband because he didn't know he was married at the time, and he even gave OP a heads up immediately after he found out she was married to her husband. But I do blame him for his character for knowing OP's husband cheated on his marriage to sleep with him at that time now, and having done this incredibly messed up thing to OP, and still choosing to take this man in as your boyfriend. That's just kind of crazy to me. I don't think I would have taken in a man like that. Now here are some of the top/relevant comments from the update post. Commenter 1 says, "As a gay man, your future ex-husband is the kind of man I wouldn't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. It is never okay to commit to someone when you're not sure of who you are or what you want." Commenter 2 says, "Also gay here, and I have to agree. Sure, we all feel bad when someone, gay or straight, male or female, falls for us when we're incompatible, but you don't effing marry them and then make them live a lie. You're not helping when you do that crap. You're doing serious harm." Commenter 3 says, "Your first steps should be to go to the doctor for a full panel STD test and to a lawyer. What he did is really crappy, and there's no excuse for it. I know you are devastated, and you have every right and reason to be. And as awful as this is to think of right now, I promise one day you will be grateful this happened. That new boyfriend just saved you. You deserve someone who will be completely honest and madly in love with you. Hopefully, you both realize what a scumbag your husband is and leave his toxicity behind. He doesn't deserve another second of your time." Okay friends, so that concludes today's video. Leave a like and comment down below to let me know what you thought of it, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Take care.